Randy, we've got a problem.
What?
They go.
Reality's here. He's trying to crash the party. Reality? Who let him in?
You're sad that people are mean? Well, I'm sorry. The world isn't one big liberal arts college campus.
I don't have an agenda like I want people to do something. I need them to do something. I want them to avoid irrationality.
I guess what interests me is just like what interests everybody else. It's just sort of what feels real.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Real News on your morning time. It is 9:02 Central, 10:02 Eastern on this Thursday, October 8th. How is everybody doing? That's October 8th, 2020, in case these aliens ever come back and they're watching in the future at some later date. You know where to go to first, alien race. Go to Real News. This will be the definitive answer of the pinnacle of human achievement. We've done it, Shime. We did it on this program. The aliens are going to come back and they're going to watch this show.
We did it. All right.
We did it, guys. That's the show for today. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you later. Hey, I know you have a choice in the morning. I'm talking directly to you. You in this camera right here. I know you have a choice in the morning as to where to gather your morning digest of information, to grow your community, to grow yourself, to participate in making change in your fellow man, and all those great things as I adjust the height of my seat. And we appreciate you for choosing Real News doing that. Hey, let's get right into this here. I have Facebook stream going right here. I have the alternate YouTube stream going right here. I have Shine's face over here. Yes, I got 3 screens in front of me. We're doing it big. And because there's so many places to catch real news, or real news, depending on which part of the world you're in, go to realnewsradio.live, realnewsradio.live. That's the central landing page for all the Real News related things. You can find links to YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Minds. I just posted a Minds Parlor, Twitter, whatever else we're doing out there, even a little bit of swag if you want to get your Real News game up. Hey, as we do every single morning here, greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment. I see Kelly in there. I see Eric in Facebook, a few others in Facebook. Let us know how you're doing, what you're struggling with, where you're at in life, what philosophy you're reading through, what books you're reading through, what novels you're into right now, any of that type of stuff. What prayer concerns you have going on right now. Do you need someone just to help you with a hot meal? You got a business you want to promote? You want to bring him on the program? Any of that stuff? Speaking of, we have an awesome guy that I need to get in touch with. I'm talking about small business. This is a guy that likes to 3D print things for firearms. Very interesting segment we're lining up here from one of our friends, Sherry Voluntary, turned me on to this person. Really, really interesting thing. Stay tuned for more on that. But let us know in the comment section how you're doing with stuff this morning and where you're at in life. Hey, let me give a quick update here in the local news section, and then we'll go dive into the national stories. Biggest national story of the day, obviously, we're going to go over some stuff in the vice presidential debate. I mean, honestly, you know, it's not like grand slam material. It's not home run stuff. It's just interesting to go over because, you know, it was in the vein of a traditional style debate again. They were trading substantive arguments and blah, blah, blah. Frankly speaking, it was the commentary afterwards that was the most interesting for me. We'll get to that in a second. We also have some stuff that I finally broke down this Epic Times story, talking about the DNI declassified CIA memo that Comey claimed to have no memory of receiving. And this whole memo is basically revealing now that, hey, CIA director and FBI director, Brendan and Comey probably had advanced knowledge that Hillary Clinton was essentially trying to set up a scheme by which it would look as if Russia was trying to influence the Trump campaign. And because it was they had advanced knowledge that Hillary Clinton was trying to set this up, they actually took action based upon that. I mean, I don't know even how to describe this to you. I mean, take Watergate and then pour Watergate on top of Watergate. That's a little bit, I think, of what we have going on right now. But it doesn't matter because we're in the day and age where no one cares about that stuff anymore. Another national story we're going to get to eventually here is that turns out Adam Silver is saying that the NBA is probably not going to push as much social justice messaging next time around. Maybe their ratings went down. Who knows? And then something that's been floating out there in the headlines that we may not even have time to get to, but I've seen a lot of people talk about this, and I just kind of want to set the record straight here because the commentary you're getting on this is just not correct. So the Supreme Court was hit with a decision that they decided not to take up. They denied cert, it's called. It basically says, we're not going to take it up this time. Sorry, not sorry. Kick it back down to the previous court's decision, and whatever the previous court decided, that's what's going to stick in as law. And this one in particular was dealing with the challenge to Obergefell, which is, we all know at this point, is the Supreme Court decision dealing with homosexual marriage. And the commentary that's coming out of that pertaining specifically to Justice Thomas and Justice Alito, saying that that they lash out at that 2015 decision. Here's the headline from CNN: Justice Thomas and Alito lash out at the decision that cleared the way for same-sex marriage. That is not at all what ends up happening. It's just not. And that's, again, part of the complexity with getting into just very limited opinions like this. They didn't lash out at the 2015 opinion. They just said it wasn't ours to decide. It was y'all's to decide. You're the people. You can write laws. You can pass amendments. Do it the proper way. Do it the proper way and submit it in stone so we can stop having this nonsensical conversation. We are 9 old people. We're unelected. We're not supposed to tell you how to run society. We're supposed to tell you what the 4 corners of this little document say, and if it fits within there, then go. But if not, change it, man. Change society. Have a free-for-all. There are very clear mechanisms by which you can change society, and we're not supposed to be one of them. That's what they were saying. They weren't saying anything about the specific of Obergefell's decision. They were just saying it was done the wrong way. Nevertheless, let me get back to the local stories here. Quick update pertaining to the Nashville Taxpayer Protection Act here in Nashville, Tennessee. If you're just new to the program, you're just joining us. If you stumbled across some hashtag like a bunch of our folks in the community have, and you love what we do here, the reason why we do what we do here in Real News, we're not about, the likes and shares and all that stuff for the sake of likes and shares. We ask for the likes and shares, which we greatly appreciate. We ask for likes and shares.
Like and share, or no free peanuts. Free peanuts are cut off.
There's a link in the show notes for free peanuts. There's not.
There's no link. Don't listen to him.
There's no link. What we try and do in this program is bring more people in the community, regardless of where you are, so we can grow with each other, develop with each other, have disagreements with each other. Genuine, honest, open disagreements. Vulnerability breeding vulnerability, so that when we do disagree with one another, we are disagreeing amongst friends and neighbors, not amongst enemies, man. Nobody's doing that right now. We genuinely believe in that pitch and that push. So with that being said, if you're not in the Tennessee area, don't know what we're talking about, the Nashville Taxpayer Protection Act, they passed a 34 to 37% property tax increase here in the Nashville area, depending on where you live. We at Americans for Prosperity and several other folks that helped us out, about 40 or 50 other folks that helped us out in the Nashville area, gathered 26,000 signatures to put this issue on the ballot for December 5th at the time. Now, since then, we've gone back and forth in court systems and everything else, and I just want to give a quick update here. We are currently stalled in the sense that the Election Commission here, whose only real legal capacity is to count the signatures, verify that the signatures are real, and put it on the ballot for a vote. That's basically their only court. That's their only real legal authority to do anything. I say that because a 2004 Supreme Court decision backs me up. That Tennessee State Supreme Court decision backs up on that. There was a case coming out in 2004 where an election commission tried to keep something off the ballot, and state Supreme Court said, y'all don't have that power. What are you doing here? Your only real power here is to count the signatures, make sure they're verified. If they are verified, make sure that it's not grossly facially illegal, meaning on its face, they're not trying to pass murder or something like that. They're trying to make murder legal or something absurd like that. If that's not the case, then you have to put it on the ballot, let the people's voice be heard. If something's problematic in the legal sense afterwards, we'll deal with that. We'll issue an injunction or what do we have to do? Nevertheless, we're stalled in the court systems right now. That's basically all we've heard of it. That decision came down for the Election Commission to kick it off to a declaratory judgment is what they wanted. They wanted to kick it to the court system and say, hey, you guys figure this out for us. We think there might be a legal problem with it, but we don't really know. We're going to kick it off to y'all. So we tried to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, fine, let's ask for a declaratory judgment. What they ended up coming back with is nothing at all. I mean, literally nothing at all. There's nothing been done at this point. So I just want to give you all an update here that we're still waiting for them to move. And we're starting to think that the tactic they're taking is to just stall all the way until the election.
They're just stalling. That's all. They're just stalling.
They're just stalling. But I will say, don't fret. Don't worry. I can't speak on behalf of AFP, but I can speak on behalf of my buddy Jim Roberts, the attorney that put this language together. He has already indicated to us, if they don't make a move, he's going to make a move. So something will be done. This thing is going to be on the ballot, whether it be December 5th or December 15th. Rest assured. Now, let's move into the Knox County news. And the Knox County news is statewide news. And this particular statewide news, dare I say, I don't want to be so bold here, but I think it might have greater implications than just the state of Tennessee. Let me just read the headlines here, and we'll go further into it. WVLT headline here. Could the Knox County Health Department lose its power? Tennessee official looks to make that happen. Now, WVLT, let me knock you just real quick here on the the Tennessee official. I get it. You want to coax people in. Which Tennessee official? It's a pretty important Tennessee official.
No, I think it's more of a draw if you say who it is. Personally.
That's what I'm thinking, right?
Personally.
Tell me it's Speaker Sexton. Yeah.
It's, Tennessee Speaker of the House. Maybe you don't even say his name because he may, you know what I'm saying? But people know what the Speaker of the House is.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Tennessee official could be literally anybody. So anyways, this Tennessee official.
Tennessee dog catcher says.
That's right. Yeah, right. So the Tennessee official so happens to be Speaker Sexton. Speaker Sexton Speaker of the House, Sexton. He's arguably pretty high up there as far as the hierarchy goes in those that can make these decisions. Now, here's the story. 2 weeks ago, more than 40 people signed up to speak at the Knox County Commission meeting on September 28th. I believe this is a meeting that your boy Shine was actually at, to voice concern over the power held by Knox County Health Department and Knox County Board of Health. Now, for those that don't know, if you're outside of the state of Tennessee, or if you just need a quick refresher inside of the state, there are 6 counties within this state whereby the health board makes the majority of edicts, mandates. They issue the majority. They can have the controlling stake of power when it comes to issues of health concern, primarily dealing with COVID-19 issues, just within these 6 counties. Outside of that, I don't know. If the governor himself issues a state of emergency, then it applies there. If he doesn't, then it doesn't apply there. Moving forward, Tennessee House Speaker Cameron Sexton said he wants to introduce legislation that would quell these concerns and bring more oversight to health departments that are not directly managed by the state, like Knox County. Davidson County, I presume, is another one. Shelby County over in Memphis is another one. The county commission passed a resolution expressing disapproval. The county commission of Knox County, that is. Knox County Commission passed a resolution expressing disapproval of the Board of Health's authority. The resolution has no legal impact and is merely a signal of the commission's concerns. Well, sort of, kind of. I mean, it was just a signal of their concern until a few other local state legislators got involved and then started tweeting around this idea. I'm talking about Jason Zachary. He's passing around this idea that, hey, I want to introduce something to remove some of this power and place it back in the hands of elected officials. When Jason Zachary, Representative Zachary, tweeted that out, he said, I also have support from House leadership. His words, his tweet. This is what he's talking about. Speaker Sexton's now come out on 2 or 3 different interviews saying the exact same thing. Not only do I support what's going on, I'm going to be one of the people that possibly introduces language himself. This was saying days after the resolution was passed, Knox County Health Board met on September 30th with members discussing the resolution. Quote, some of the comments were well-founded. This is board member Dr. Patrick O'Brien said on Monday's meeting that resulted in the resolution. We're dealing with the public health and will continue to do so. Another board member, Maria Hertz, said, while they're not elected, they are vetted by the county commission, saying there is a level of accountability, sort of, kind of, but accountability in the extent that won't matter once you can be held accountable. There might be another item on their agenda, however, after Speaker Sexton's, this is what they say, the meeting concluded with no definite action on the resolution, but the board is set to meet again on October 14th. So WVLT goes on to say, on October 14th, there might be another item they have to deal with. There might be another item on their agenda after Speaker Sexton's comments on October 1st and October 7th. On the 1st, Sexton told WVLT News that he looked to limit the authority of Knox County Health Department along with the 5 other metropolitan health departments across the state. That's what I'm saying, y'all. This is not just Knox County specific. This Knox County issue has become a statewide issue. The Speaker of the House is taking this up as like one of his priority number 1 issues going into next legislative session. And if they're doing this in Tennessee, I would presume, it might be too strong of a word, let's just assume that they might do this in other states as well. Here's Sexton's exact statement. He said, quote, traveling across Tennessee, I have heard from many people and businesses in our larger counties who are all frustrated with the lack of communication from these unelected bureaucrats. Their restrictive policies only continue to hamper our statewide recovery efforts and cause further damage to Tennessee businesses, communities. A representative for his office, a guy named Doug Kuffner, told Memphis affiliate WMC, quote, that Speaker Sexton believes independent health departments like Shelby County have too much control and autonomy. They should serve in advisory roles to our elected local officials, not as absolute authority. Speaker Sexton will ask the General Assembly to scale back this law next year. And lastly here, last one I'm going over is on October 7th, Sexton told WVLT News again on a separate occasion, quote, if they can just shut down our entire community, shut down the entire city, say in Knoxville, over the objections, the various elected officials, that's a lot of power. That's a lot of autonomy. And I think the general idea here, the general notion being pushed across, as I'm going to go hit some Facebook comments here in just a second, the general idea seems to be, okay, I don't think anybody's arguing with the idea that they should have some type of, advisory role. I don't think anybody's arguing with the fact that they should have some type of role where they clearly advise the elected officials as to what should be the best decision. But we've gone past that advisory role. And initially, when this law was put together, it seems like some of the language was strongly indicating that that's what they would prefer, whoever the legislators were. Now, I get it. And obviously, we're here where we are now. So they're in a role where they can actually issue and order edicts and mandates that need to be followed. But at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is in a situation where people want to have their voice heard, when they want to feel as if there is a community decision that has been made in a representative republic. We don't live in a democracy here. We live in a representative republic where you represent someone to go speak on your behalf. If you have no representation in those decisions, people feel not just disenfranchised and marginalized, they feel like their voice has been entirely squelched. So what I'm attempting to do in the last couple of minutes here is bifurcate these two issues, to separate the science from the policy, to separate what the doctors and the medicine are saying from what the politicians are saying. I believe these are two entirely different realms, and we've commingled the two in such a manner now that we've lost all sense of objectivity. Everything is politicized now, y'all. Dude, every single aspect of this is politicized, and it just doesn't need to be. Let's hit some of these comments here.
Hey, let me throw something in here real quick, Mr. Henry. You talked about the language and what you thought people would prefer. I want to talk about the language of that law. Not that I've read the statutes that people are pulling from that empower these boards in the 6 counties, but it's not specific enough. The language is very vague. Like in Shelby County, there's not a health board running everything because they don't have a health board. It's just the head of the health department who's running everything. Because the language in the actual statute is very vague. And I feel like there's work to be done in the legislature, no matter how you feel about this legislation, pro or against. There's work to be done because you can't entrust that much power into either an individual or a board of individuals with it being so vague. And I do want to point out, for context, this is around the same time and the same people who put the Nathan Bedford Forrest bust in the Capitol. Same group of legislators.
That was it. Okay.
It was around the same time. So these people maybe weren't the best. And I've heard the legislation is so vague that it's kind of like whoever at the beginning of this pandemic had the will gained power. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's not how we want things to be done. It needs to be more clear. It needs to reflect the will of the people. And I think just some work needs to be done to clarify it, generally speaking. Because, like, we have this board over here in Knox County. We have the health department head over in Shelby County. You have a mayor running stuff in Chattanooga, even though he's under the same rules. There's not a health board or a health department person running things in Chattanooga. And in metro government in Nashville, it's metro government, not either one of those things. It's like, so everybody's really doing it differently, which is not, I'm sure that's not the intention of the people who wrote the legislation, for sure, for everyone to be doing it a little bit differently. And also, too, the big thing, if people aren't able to go to the people who are making decisions and have some kind of recourse when there's harm, that also means there was poorly written legislation. So there's some things for them to figure out, because everyone's kind of like wild westing and claiming they have authority all at the same time.
Right.
And I don't think we can live that way.
Now, let me read these comments here, and I tend to totally agree with you. And as I'm reading some of these other comments, if you so happen to be watching on Facebook, Twitch, wherever you're watching, I mean, YouTube even, throw the comments out there. You can see them in the screen scrolling right beside me here. I want to know possibly too from those people, say like Jessica or somebody else that lives in a different state. How is this in your state? Are you guys looking at similar options as this? Have you had problems like this with the local municipalities doing something different than the state might direct? Is it one and the same? What would you think about an implementation that Tennessee is doing in a different state? Would it work well enough, right? Kelly says in Facebook here, they were there until about 1:30 a.m. It was really awesome. I think she's referencing the meeting I was talking about a second ago where a couple hundred people showed up. September 28th, I believe. She says there might be another 400 plus people there. Says exactly. Unelected boards have way too much control. She says, I'm not necessarily opposed to having a board of health. They have way too much power. Daniel just said on Facebook, everyone doing these things differently is how it should be done. 100% agree. He says the great experiment, find out what works best. Dude, that's exactly correct. That is exactly right.
Everybody as long as it involves elected officials and people who were voted on to have power and not people appointed based on their trade.
Right.
I don't know if y'all know, that's how the People's Congress chooses their Congress. It's a bunch of trade unions who do it by job. Because at least here in Knox County, these people are supposedly the best of the best of their trade union, but it's like a veterinarian, a pharmacist, a nurse. Not to discount these people. I'm sure they do a great job and they might be the best nurse. But there's not or the best pharmacist or the best veterinarian. But there's no epidemiologist on this board. You know? It's like, I know you're talking, things doing stuff differently, as long as the people who are invested with power, those are getting their power from the people and through voting. That's when it's good.
And I would venture to say that Daniels probably would completely agree with you on that. And I want to make one more appeal here too. I think there's this unfortunate thing that we stumble into of dichotomous thinking from time to time, especially in 2020, where it has to be either or, where it has to be the binary choice. It has to be either one or two. It has to be either black or white. It's either A or B. You understand what I'm saying? The problem with dichotomous thinking is that it's not just that there's no room for nuance. It's that it's not real. It doesn't measure up with reality. No one actually acts upon there only being this ultimatum of either choose this or choose that. The real situation is always somewhere in the middle. And I say that to say, I feel like the people that are in support of the Board of Health doing nothing with it right now, giving them full, total authority to do whatever they want to, are under the impression that if it were left up to, let's say, Mayor Jacobs, he wouldn't listen to them at all. That he would just do he would go the exact opposite direction. Like the Board of Health wants you to make sure you wear a mask and protect people's health. And for some odd reason, I think the conception now is that Mayor Jacobs would say, no, forget about health. We're going the exact opposite direction. Don't do anything. No prevention at all. That's as absurd as the other way would be. I mean, that's asinine. It's absolutely absurd. And you don't have to know Mayor Jacobs on a personal level to understand that. What I'm saying is, I think there's a place for the politicians to take in and genuinely consider the advice and counsel of the medical professionals and say, I get it. Now I'm trained in an ability to be able to pitch this to the people. My expertise is in the realm of being able to make this make sense to the people that elected me to do so, to work with the business leaders, to figure out how to implement this on a level so that we all don't fail across the board, so that suicidality doesn't skyrocket, so people aren't getting divorced all over the place, so their businesses are not absolutely failing, so that we're not decimating the community, so people can actually provide food the next day. So we're not just
thinking about sales taxes and how much is in the county coffers and like just considering other things, but like we talked about in other shows, not just considering COVID to the exclusion of all other things. Just like thinking about, just like having in your mind that there are other concerns besides COVID, not necessarily putting those above COVID. Just like keeping in mind that there's other concerns. Like you mentioned the suicide rate, jobless rate, marriage, divorce, or even just regular relationships, domestic violence, things like that. These are all things to consider. And we had a comment just recently here in Facebook that said politicians aren't particularly better at making decisions on health than doctors. It's not about who would make the best decision. It's about people responding to the decisions that are made positively, because it doesn't matter if you have the best people making decisions if no one cares, if no one wants to listen. And part of the reason you have elected officials do these things instead of the head of trade unions is because people have some kind of connection. There's like some kind of belief because we've been doing government this way for hundreds of years. Or, at least, for a while, since Magna Carta, right? Since the House of Commons and the House of Lords. We've been doing this for a while, and there's an expectation that when the elected official says for you to do something, the majority of people will do it. And how you govern is almost as important as the way you govern. Like how you get to those decisions, the decision-making process, how the laws, how the rules get to you, and who gives them to you. Because just because you make a rule doesn't mean people will follow it. People have to believe in the rule-making process. Just like when we talk about voting, chain of custody is just as important as voter access. Because if people don't believe in the outcome, it doesn't matter if you had 100% voter participation. It doesn't matter. If people don't believe in or at least you have to have at most like 90% of those people believe in the outcome. Otherwise, what are you doing?
Right. Hey, let's see here. Daniel did say in Facebook too, it should be advice and not a mandate. Agreed. Kelly said, yep, Mayor Jacobs is a really smart guy. That would not likely be his response, meaning that Mayor Jacobs, I don't think any politician's response would be the exact opposite of what his health board is advising him to do. I mean, that's a bold statement. There might be a few politicians out there who would say, forget all of your advice. I'm not worrying about any of it. You're completely wrong. I, as the politician, know what it means to be a doctor and how to transmit viruses from one person to another. I'm going to make my own decisions. There are some politicians out there that would go that far. I just don't think Mayor Jacobs is one of them, is the point I'm making. Sherry said a second ago, why is the county commission in Knox County so opposed to dissolving? They can have an advisory board. Well, I hear what she's saying, that the Board of Health obviously is opposed to dissolving. I don't know if the Board of Health is like power drunk. I don't know if that's my argument. I do think that they think that they're serving a true, genuine purpose in the community right now. And I think that they believe, the health board believes, that if you dissolve their power, then you're going to have major problems of skyrocketing cases again or something to that extent. The county commission is actually one that's trying to do something about that. But nevertheless.
Hey, can I say, too, I know for a fact that there are people on the board of, not the Board of Health, the Knox County Commission, who do want to dissolve it. But I don't think that there's 6 votes for dissolving it.
Oh, I got you.
You know what I'm saying? And also, too, like, you can't just slash and burn in government. You always want a government that, even when something's obvious, it moves kind of slow. Because if it was something that you didn't like, you wouldn't want them to just slash and burn. Mm-hmm. And there's obviously a debate going on within our community, and it's up to county commission to reflect that, to be perfectly honest, so people believe in the outcome. And now I know some of you are kind of this may be your first foray into politics. Like maybe you haven't paid attention to county government before or state government. And like this just got you into it because you were tired of like being told what to do about masks, or you want your kids to be going to school instead of staying at home with virtual learning. And I totally get that. But let me just let you know, things in government often move more slowly than you'd like. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword, because when it's something you don't like, you want it to move slowly.
Yeah,
right. It's our founders set it up that way. It's that way on purpose. And I think it's been good for the county for them not to slash and burn and to talk about like saying, hey, here's a resolution that gives our opinion. And then see how the Board of Health reacts. Because, like, if they just stop issuing edicts and mandates after that, then you're not really hurting anybody. Then that way it's just a debate, right? You don't have to use force. Force is not what you want to use when you are in authority. You want to win through convincing people of your ideas based on the merits, right? That's how you'd love to do it. So I think them doing what they did was wise. Now, I do think you'll see other actions in the next meeting because the mandates are still there. The Class C felony misdemeanor is still there. So the fact that they didn't respond to county commission means you'll see a next move and maybe another move in December. But the momentum is with the people who want their representatives to be making decisions for them. And as we talked about yesterday, it's like, thank goodness we have people who have that point of view in Knox County at all. Just because they're not doing exactly what you want right now. I mean, I understand that. But I don't know. I grant, and back me up here. I've been involved with issues where you had to search high and low to find someone who was even sympathetic.
Oh.
to your point of view. At least we have people on county commission who represent that point of view. I mean, look at Grant over in Nashville with Metro government. There's nobody trying to do anything like that in Metro government. So be thankful for what we do have here in Knox County.
Right. I mean, there's literally a single guy in Metro government that's trying to help the cause here for this 34% property tax increase. I mean, dude, let's talk about civil asset forfeiture. It was basically just Martin Daniel for like 3 or 4 years that was trying to do anything with getting rid of civil asset forfeiture. Now, we made a lot of headway in this state regarding civil asset forfeiture. But again, when this just started, the ball that got that rolling, that's not exactly fair. It was Martin Daniel and a very select few others. When he first proposed that initial bill, I think he had 4 co-sponsors. And then 2 years later, he had 40-something co-sponsors. And we eventually picked up steam with it. But you're exactly right, Sean. I mean, imagine trying to work on something for years, for 2 or 3 years with a single guy up there in representative capacity helping you something. Speaking of, by the way, as we're transitioning into national power here, national stories, Jonathan said on the way.
National power.
With our national powers combined, Jonathan said in Facebook, no degree gives anyone power over another. The power of the health board is insane.
And Sherry Garrett just said that the Knox County has to be very careful who is voted in. It's the same with any. It's like, well, yeah, but it's not because of COVID. You should always be concerned who's running your government.
Yeah. But she is right. I mean, like, I think what she's saying there, too, is like if it is true, like WVLT was reporting, that the Knox County Commission has some sense of advisory capacity over the health board, meaning they can approve or not approve who's in there, then in some version, you would have an ability to say, like, it's important who is county commissioner because they're the ones that are going to have some type of appointment power over this health board or something, right? But again, that's what I meant, Sean. I think you're right, too, when you say, well, even if you want to do something about it, you have to wait till the next time around that happens. And the COVID stuff wouldn't be a problem by then, right? Or not a problem by then, but you get what I'm saying. It wouldn't be as relevant as it is now the next time you need to consider the health board appointments, right? Hey, Sean.
Unless they appointed a whole new board.
Well, that's true. Unless
they just fired everybody on the board and appointed a new one. You know, I haven't heard about anything like that, but that would be a different kind of solution. Maybe put an epidemiologist on the board. You know, maybe put a virologist on the board.
Maybe a business owner. Is that
crazy? Grant, am I crazy?
No, I hear you. I mean, like, if that's an idea to sort of clean the slate and start over new with something that's COVID specific, it would at least that would make far more sense to people of like, okay, if we're going to do the COVID thing, let's let's do it. You know, let's get the pharmacist and veterinarian and nurse off, not to disparage them. I'm sure they're really great at their jobs, but like, if you're talking about how the county responds to things, do we need a pharmacist's help with that? Right.
Or a veterinarian? Like, is anyone concerned about their dog getting COVID?
No, I hear you there.
I mean, like, for real? And if he did, would you even know? Like, does your horse have COVID? Does your cow have COVID? Who cares? Because they're probably going to be fine, just like 99% of most people. But anyway, Grant, what about this national power you were talking about? Do we have that still?
That's a terrible way to transition into the vice president.
No, it's fun to say, though. National power.
National power. I only laugh about that because, you know, the vice president arguably is the least powerful position in D.C. And I say that with complete sincerity. I don't know what this person does aside from break a Senate vote. And even that, I don't know when the last time that happened was. It's happened from time to time.
Are you talking about Pence, man? He's been running the COVID response team.
No, that's true.
He's been like interfacing with like Walmart and Pfizer and all those big companies.
That's true.
Like he helped organize making all those respirators and PPE. I mean, like 2-3 big giant meetings a day with like the airlines, working with them on a 1-to-1 basis.
Well, I'll say this way.
He might have been working harder than Trump, to be honest with you. Trump's like, can you just handle COVID while I keep doing stuff?
I'll come out every now and then and just pitch to the people. It's huge. Going to be great. What I mean is, okay, so let's say constitutional statutory power, then the vice president is arguably one of the most limited positions in
and look at Dick Cheney. Like he was like doing nothing. Okay. You want to talk about vice presidential power? And look at Joe Biden. I mean, Joe Biden was able to shut down a prosecutor in another country. Sounds like a powerful guy to me.
Yeah.
You just don't know what the vice president does, Grant. That doesn't mean they don't do stuff.
All right, fine. We'll go with that. Well, speaking of the vice president, we had these debates last night. And go ahead and pull up that recap video, Sean, if you can. It's the first national
It's already
story.
next to you, bro. It says America decides 20 next to you right now.
Well, I'll hold off on my. So like I said before, some of the commentary and some of this afterwards was the most interesting portion for me, and it primarily has to do with the aspect of mansplaining. It's just like, bro, I'll get to that in a second. Just keep that in the back of your mind. That's where I'm going to go with some of this stuff eventually.
That's so sexist, by the way. It's like just discounting anything a man says by he's just mansplaining. It's just like ad hominem is all that is.
But it also paints Kamala Harris as a victim. It's like, dude, she was a prosecutor her entire life. She didn't need any help from you. She can hang with the big boys. I promise you. Quit painting her.
Her dad is like the richest dude on the island of Jamaica. Dude, like the richest dude on the island of Jamaica.
She is not a weak person by any stretch. Look what she's accomplished right now. She doesn't need your help being painted as a weak individual. And the more you try and paint her as someone that's being mansplained to or just being spoken over, makes her look weak. She is not weak. I promise you she'll do just fine hanging with the big boys. And if people would not have had a problem with Mike Pence speaking over a man, then you shouldn't have a problem with Mike Pence speaking over a woman. Because Kamala Harris has cut her chops, bro. I'm telling you. She knows what she's doing.
More people in jail,
dude,
than like anybody in the state of California.
She is a formidable adversary, and she's a formidable opponent, however you look at it, okay? She can do as much as any other dude in that stage does, and by you constantly painting, by you, the proverbial, you, the media, constantly painting this thing that she was mansplained to all night or spoken over, makes her look like a victim and makes her look weak. She is not weak. She is not a victim. She can hang with the big boys, I promise you, but if you keep pitching that stereotype, and if you keep playing this thing out, this victim mentality, they're going to believe she is weak. And then
Grant, I watched the debate last night. I believe it. You know, she's at least a weak debater. You know,
well, she's a weak debater.
She's a weak debater. She was like, but Donald Trump. Oh.
I'll put it this way, man. No one had a problem with Hillary Clinton being spoken over by Donald Trump because they knew Hillary Clinton might actually have a body count, bro. And they had no problem with it because Hillary Clinton is cold and conniving and calculating, and she can hang with her own. They had no problem. Hillary Clinton can take care of herself, man. That's
Big
the point
Boy
I'm making.
and Tupac would be scared of Hillary Clinton.
They probably, honestly, they probably would.
She's
man.
a gangster.
Right.
She makes gangsters pee their pants.
Dude, in all sincerity, Hillary Clinton is she's probably harder than any. She's tougher than any dude, most other dudes that she was on the stage with. I'm telling you, she might have some bodies around her. Let's go on with this. Anyways, the recap video. Go ahead and play that recap video, man. We'll start from the very beginning. There's a couple of points I want to hit, but just go from the very beginning. Here we go.
Can you imagine if you knew on January 28th, as opposed to March 13th, what they knew, what you might have done to prepare? They knew and they covered it up. The president said it was a hoax. They minimized the seriousness of it. The president said, you're on one side of his ledger if you wear a mask, you're on the other side of his ledger if you don't. And in spite of all of that, today they still don't. And Joe Biden is the best leader to do that. And frankly, this administration has forfeited their right to re-election based on this.
Thank you, Senator Harris.
And under President Trump's leadership, Operation Warp Speed, we believe will have literally tens of millions of doses of a vaccine before the end of this year.
I'm just pausing it while our stream reconnects, Grant. Give me 1 second.
Hey, can you hear me, Sean?
Yep, we're just, the stream got
that's all right.
disconnected and waiting for it to, it looks like it'll be back here in just a second.
Oh, no worries, man. You totally froze on mine, too. I mean, the Zoom actually froze.
I know. This is what happens, my friend.
Oh, that's all right.
This is what happens when you talk about Hillary, you know.
We might still be live on YouTube, by the way. But
oh, very true. I think we're all. Looks like we are back. Okay, so I'm gonna just rewind.
Programming.
I'm just gonna rewind the video a little bit.
All right,
and start from the beginning. Thank you. Sorry about the interruption, everybody. As you're refinding us, we're gonna be watching this recap video.
Can you imagine if you knew on January 28th, as opposed to March 13th, what they knew, what you might have done to prepare? They knew and they covered it up. The president said it was a hoax. They minimized the seriousness of it. The president said, you're on one side of his ledger if you wear a mask, you're on the other side of his ledger if you don't. And in spite of all of that, today they still don't have a plan. They still don't have a plan. Well, Joe Biden does. And our plan is about what we need to do around a national strategy for contact tracing, for testing, for administration of the vaccine and making sure that it will be free for all. That is the plan that Joe Biden has and that I have, knowing that we have to get a hold of what has been going on, and we need to save our country. And Joe Biden is the best leader to do that. And frankly, this administration has forfeited their right to re-election based on this.
Thank you, Senator
Sounds
Harris.
familiar.
Under President Trump's leadership.
That was literally her only decent moment, and it was filled with what Pence is going to say here is plagiarism, which is totally true.
Operation Warp Speed, we believe, will have literally tens of millions of doses of a vaccine before the end of this year. The reality is, when you look at the Biden plan, it reads an awful lot like what President Trump and I and our task force have been doing every step of the way. I mean, quite frankly, when I look at their plan that talks about advancing testing, creating new PPE, developing a vaccine, it looks a little bit like plagiarism, which is something Joe Biden knows a little bit about. I think the American people know that.
We learned that they knew about it, and then when that was exposed.
Pause that there if you want, Sean, and skip to minute 3, if you will. I thought that was a funny way to start it. You're right there, Sean. Arguably, that was Harris's best moment of the program of the debate.
And it was right
night.
at the beginning, and it was all downhill from there. I mean, it actually got weird to watch. And every time she talked about something else that she would either run out of points or became uncomfortable with, she came back to this. She came back to COVID, came back to healthcare. In fact, she's more disciplined on that than Biden was. Biden could have stand to have done that a little better.
Well, and it wasn't even so much that she did well as much as she was just pointing to another administration's failures, right? And again, an argument in the negative is not exactly convincing me of anything. I'm not sure what you're trying to convince me of other than that just somebody else did it wrong. Well, that doesn't mean that you are going to do it right. It just means that, okay, fine. Well, if you want to convince me that the other people did it terribly, well, cool. But how are you going to do it better? There wasn't that other alternate side of giving me a pro side of the argument. You know what I'm saying? And even aside from that, things that she was leading with to give a pro side of the argument.
The stuff she mentioned was stuff that the Trump administration's been doing since February.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Everything that she mentioned as far as the pro side of the argument where she was trying to convince me of the better way to do it is stuff that the Trump administration has already been doing. And aside from that, when she pitches this idea, like on January 24th, imagine knowing blah, blah, blah. She kept pitching this notion that the Trump administration knew stuff about it and was just hiding it from the American people. I don't know where that pitch came from. I've not followed that narrative at all anywhere.
We couldn't confirm anything until the end of February when the first American scientists were allowed into Wuhan.
Right.
So they heard something in January, but they didn't know something in January, mostly because of the WHO and China until February, because they wouldn't let our people in there.
And how many times have we played clips on this program of Nancy Pelosi walking through the downtown streets in Chinatown of San Francisco saying, get out and celebrate Chinese New Year in February. It's not a problem. Don't worry about it. How many times have we played clips on this program of the health director in New York City saying the exact same thing about Chinese New Year? The point I'm making is
Maxine Waters did the same thing. So did Mayor de Blasio.
If you're gonna pass blame around about, you know, the nobody, look, I'll put it this way: nobody in this country got it correct except for one dude, and his name is Senator Tom Cotton. And everyone labeled him as so much of a xenophobe that nobody took him seriously. Tom Cotton was talking about this since December of last year at the latest. I mean, the guy brought it up in like October and November of 2019. We got a problem. Something's going on in China. Can we take a look at this? Have you heard about this? They're sealing up doorways of apartment complexes. Is nobody paying attention to this? Because I'm going to tell somebody about it. Tom Cotton was desperately pleading with at least Fox News to, can we cover this story? Because it may come here. So aside from Senator Cotton, Democrat and Republican alike, if you want to pass blame around or pass the buck around, I don't care about that. Monday morning quarterbacking is not going to get anything done right now. And aside from that, it's just disingenuous. So nobody believes that pitch either. President Trump was hiding stuff and didn't get it right. Well, dude, come on, man. Everybody else was too. And if that's the authority you want to put into a president, that it's solely on his head to save us from COVID, I don't want a guy to have that much authority either. Doesn't necessarily matter. Go to minute 3, though, if you can, Sean. This is just a totally different take on some stuff that happened last night. At minute 3, Harris says that she would take a vaccine if the doctors told her to, but she's not taking it at all if Trump tells her to take the vaccine.
This is where it really turned for her. I think people who were kind of sympathetic but on the fence did not like this statement. And then Pence capitalized on it very well.
Americans take it, and would you take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it. Absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
That sounds as ignorant as anything anyone's saying.
Yeah, right.
Just throwing that out there. Here we go.
The fact that you continue to undermine public confidence in a vaccine, if the vaccine emerges during the Trump administration, I think is unconscionable. And Senator, I just ask you, stop playing politics with people's lives. The reality is that we will have a vaccine, we believe, before the end of this year. And it will have the capacity to save countless American lives. And your continuous undermining of confidence in a vaccine is just, it's just unacceptable.
Joe Biden has been so
You can pause that here,
and certainly by contrast, the president has not.
Go to minute 5:10 there. 5:10 is when the pin starts talking about the economy in China. Some of the stuff that Harris goes on is just nonsense for a little while. But again, Harris pitching this idea that she's going to take a vaccine if the medical professionals tell her to do so. She's not going to take one if Trump tells her to do so. At the end of the day, Pence is just a better debater than Harris is. What Harris was, I believe, attempting to get across, and just did a terrible idea of demonstrating this, was the whole thing that's been going on with Trump, saying that I don't want to abide by the FDA regulations. We brought the story up at the very end of the show yesterday. There was a statement, an update that came out yesterday afternoon about this, where Trump said, okay, fine, we are going to go with the original FDA plans to let this roll out over the next 2 months. That's why Pence said we're going to have it by the end of the year as opposed to before election day comes through. Now, I believe that's what Harris was talking about, is she should have made some reference to Trump wanting to, I don't know, bypass FDA regulations or something. She's just a bad debater. And what it looked like it was ended up saying is that she was being partisan about the medicine, which Pence picked up on very aptly and said, quit painting vaccines in a light that people aren't going to take them. Quit painting vaccines as if we politicize vaccines, now we got a major problem coming up for us as well, too. Pence capitalizing on that, I thought, very well. But were you going to say something there, Sean?
She was undermining her own argument by doing that. And also, kind of proving to independents that that TDS is real. I mean, that was someone in the U.S. Senate showing symptoms of TDS, of Trump derangement syndrome. It's like, to a regular person who is not like the woke Twitterati, that statement sounds weird. Like,
yeah, I see.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think her whole problem was she was assuming that those like 10 million people on Twitter that like amplify her all the time are the same people as like independents and undecided voters, and they're not. So like, I don't know. You already have those people. Maybe. I guess people are worried that people aren't excited about Joe Biden amongst his base, but like theoretically, you have those people. That's not what she just said, is not what you say to independent or undecided voters. You don't show symptoms of Trump TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. That undermines your credibility as a lawmaker and as someone running for vice president.
Hey, and go ahead and skip the China economy stuff if you want. Jump to minute 6:10. I thought this was an important point that that Pence pointed out against Harris here, talking about the tax plan. And again, Sean and I were talking last night, and it just doesn't, like, this was the version of substantive policy exchange that we didn't have in the first debate. And honestly, I found myself in the middle of watching this debate. It's like, all right, dude, this is almost as bad in the opposite direction as the Trump debate was, because there's just nothing to debate on here, at least as far as something that I would agree with. It just doesn't make a lot of sense coming from the other side. I know that seems extremely partisan to me, but judge for yourself. Play from minute 6:10 there if you can, Sean.
Be a debate based on fact and truth. And the truth and the fact is Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000 a year.
He said he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking.
It'd be important if you said the truth. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts. That was tax cuts that gave the average working family $2,000 in a tax break every single year. Senator,
that is absolutely not true. That
is he only cutting?
Yeah, it is. It's child tax credit that he's talking about. And I'm so proud of Pence that he didn't shut up when he said, I'm speaking. I'm so glad he was just like, I don't care, don't care. Whatever. Anyway.
Is he only going to repeal part of the Trump tax cuts?
If you don't mind letting me finish, we can then have a conversation, okay?
Please.
Okay. Joe Biden will.
All right, and quick on her feet, dude. You can't then we can have a conversation. You need to jump right to it. Yeah. Some of these things just seem so disingenuous, and they're little tiny things. I don't know. Go ahead, Grant. I'm sorry.
No, you're right, though. I mean, honestly, that's what I was bringing up a second ago. Is I don't know. Y'all judge for yourself when it comes to some of this stuff. But when you heard Pence say, you can't say you have a tax plan that's going to do one thing and repeal the entirety of Trump's tax cuts at the same time. Those two things do not mathematically work well with each other. We're not going to raise taxes on anybody below $400,000, and we're going to get rid of Trump's tax cuts. Well, Trump's tax cuts cut people across the board. Now, the argument against Trump's tax cuts is that percentage basis, it cut more for the uber wealthy than it did for those below the uber wealthy line. Whatever an uber wealthy line would be. It cut more for the upper 5% than it did for the lower 95%.
Yeah, but only by percentage of people, not by percentage of income in the households. By percentage of income, the people making less than like $75,000 a year, that $2,000 tax break essentially means you got paid by the government instead of having to pay taxes. And
that's exactly right. And it's exactly right. The point is that, all right, let's arguendo. For sake of the argument, let's go with that idea and say that, okay, fine. It helped out the uber wealthy more than it did for the middle class American. You're still not making the argument to me, Kamala Harris, that the middle class American did not receive some type of tax savings. No one is making that argument. No one is making the argument that people are paying more in taxes under Trump's tax cut plan. Nobody is. And if that's the case, what Pence is saying is you can't repeal a tax cut and at the same time say that he's not going to raise taxes on everybody in the middle class. Those two do not mathematically correlate. They don't. They don't correlate in any other realm outside of mathematics.
Cognitive dissonance.
Right? And that's what I'm saying is I'm starting to understand now possibly why Trump didn't even get into a substantive debate, because this is as illogical as just speaking over each other. Anyways, let me go ahead and just jump to the part that I really enjoyed. Minute 9:30 seconds here. 9:30 if you can find that, Sean. It's the packing the court situation here. And let me just give a quick TLDR. You've heard this term packing the court, as Sean's finding this in the clip in the video here. You've heard this term packing the court.
Can you also explain to people what TLDR means?
Oh, yeah, right. Sorry. It means too long, didn't read. TLDR is like, okay, just give me the snippet version. Give me the short version. Too long.
It's like saying the Cliff Notes, but for the internet.
Yeah, exactly. So packing the court, you've heard that in two different debates right now. The idea comes from the Judicial Procedures Reform Bill of 1937, and it's frequently called court packing plan. It was a legislative initiative that was proposed by then President Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt, FDR. He was wanting to add more justices to the U.S. Supreme Court in order to obtain favorable rulings, specifically regarding his New Deal legislation. The court had ruled previously that New Deal legislation was unconstitutional. So FDR said, fine, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to pack the court with a whole bunch of justices that are sympathetic to my cause, and we'll dilute y'all's votes. Like a poison pill scenario almost, right?
Even though they're not votes.
Right. Well, no, I hear you, right? We're just going to dilute what the outcome might be, and it's going to be more favorable to me. Instead of having 9 of them, we're going to have 13 of them. We're going to have 20-something of them. It doesn't matter. But the central provision of the bill would have granted the president power at the time, in 1937, would have granted the president power to appoint an additional justice to the Supreme Court up to a maximum of 6 for every member of the court over the age of 70 years and 6 months. That's what they're talking about when they're talking about packing the court, because they have a real problem now. This is, dude, I'm telling y'all, this is why I keep harping on this. Every single time a situation like this comes up, I keep going back and telling y'all, if you circumvent the legislature for 40 solid years and shove every piece of societal change through the court system, you have to sleep in that bed later on. That is the problem that Democrats are dealing with right now. They wanted to shove every piece of major societal change through the unelected boards. We're talking about unelected boards. Through unelected boards of the Supreme Court, through the 14th Amendment, through the 9th Amendment, through, I don't know, whatever amendments you want to pick up here. And at the end of all of it, what they're saying is, well, now we don't like the outcome because it's about to be, I don't know, a 6-3, God forbid, a 7-2 split if Trump wins again. And we're going to have to deal with that for the next 10, 15, 20 years, possibly. We don't want to play that game. That's what they're talking about when they're asking this conversation about packing the court. And I'm telling y'all, if you want to know how bad packing the court plans can come out was, there is an argument to be made that the Supreme Court in 1937 was so afraid of FDR's plan to pack the court that we now have the jurisprudence regarding the Commerce Clause like we do right now. If you want to know why the federal government has virtual unchecked power to regulate commerce in the United States at a federal level, go check this packing the court plan. It's a totally different show that we don't have time to get into right now, but there is rulings that have come down that have basically said, hey, we're a little bit afraid of FDR packing this court. So let's just give him his New Deal, okay? Just give it to him. Just do it for right now. It's not going to be that much of a problem. And then 10, 20, 30 years later, we now have the Commerce Clause in this zombie that just won't die off, as Scalia called it. Go ahead and play it for a minute, 30 seconds.
Talk about packing the court then. Let's talk about the fact. Yeah, I'm about to. So the Trump-Pence administration.
Those moments where she makes those weird faces like I'm the god of talking and then doesn't start talking are just the most turn-off moments from the uninitiated. If you don't know anything about politics, you just tune into this, you're like, what a mean woman.
Has been, because I sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Susan, as you mentioned, and I've witnessed the appointments for lifetime appointments to the federal courts, district courts, courts of appeal. People who are purely ideological, people who have been reviewed by legal professional organizations and found to have been not competent, are substandard. And do you know that of the 50 people who President Trump appointed to the Court of Appeals for lifetime appointments, not one is black? This is what they've been doing. You want to talk about packing a court? Let's have that discussion. I will not sit here and be lectured by the vice president.
All right, stop it there, Sean.
On what it means.
Okay, so she's about to get into the thing. We're going to finish the program here with this moment, but she ended by saying, you want to talk about packing the court? Let's have that conversation. Okay, can we? Because you just rambled for 2 solid minutes there. That entire answer, it was cut up there by C-SPAN. That entire answer was 2 solid minutes. She didn't address the question once. Not once. Not a single sentence was devoted to answering the question as to whether or not Democrats actually want a plan to pack the courts. Not a single one. Then she ended by saying, you want to talk about packing the courts? President Donald Trump hasn't appointed a single black person. What? What are you talking about, man? What does this even mean? I have no idea what you're talking about. And Pence, good on him. I couldn't find the clip afterwards because C-SPAN cut it up, but the response he gave afterward was exactly what President Trump should have done to Biden and said, as you just heard, American people, she didn't answer the question. She just didn't answer the question because that scenario is going to end in one of 3 ways. Kamala Harris is either going to respond in the affirmative saying, yeah, we're going to pack courts. She's not going to do that. She's going to say, no, we're not talking about packing courts. She's not going to do that because several Democrats are talking about that. Or 3, she's just not going to respond. And regardless of how that goes down, Pence then has the ability to come back and say, you see what happens here? You see how this goes, American people? She can't respond to the question. Right? She cannot respond to the question. It's a situation by which they will inevitably be caught in their own trap. I think Pence played this correctly here. I think he absolutely did. And the response to turn this into some type of racial motivator is, I don't know, man, disingenuous isn't even the word. It's purposely misleading, and it's borderline a little bit dangerous when you do that too much. I'm just saying it's a little bit dangerous because if you do it too much, then no one can really.
It's a lot dangerous. It's a lot dangerous. We had over 150 days of rioting in certain cities around the United States. It's 100% dangerous. 100% dangerous.
Hey, let me hit some of these comments here before we get to the last clip as we're into the program here. Jessica said, so snub. Let's see here. Jonathan said, I'm speaking the truth, talking about when Pence was hitting that back. Eric said, Pence is actually pretty smooth, like him or not, better look than Kamala for sure. I think Eric's correct. He's just a better debater. And I told Shine last night, I was starting to realize about 30 minutes into this debate why Kamala Harris only picked up 2% of the support during the primaries. She's just not good at doing this style of stuff. She's just not, man. Let's see here. Kelly said she didn't answer with a bunch of laughing emojis. That's for sure. Eric said judges are the priest class of the religion of the state. Yeah, that's an interesting take on that for sure. Daniel said if they taxed every single billionaire at 100% of their wealth, it would run the government for 7 months and then the golden goose will be dead. Every single billionaire in the country at 100% of their wealth, it would only run the government for 7 months. I think it's not only an indication as to the billionaire tax situation, it's also an indication as to the terrible spending habits of the American government. Right?
That's just an indicator of how much money we're spending, and it's probably too much.
Right? And Jessica said, as we pull up this final clip here, because the final clip is one of my favorites for sure. It's that last YouTube clip there, right under that same vice presidential debate section there. You can start that clip at minute 1:31 if you want, or just play the entire thing. It's only 3 minutes, man. But Jessica said, if we are all the same race, the human race, why would it matter that there is not a black person there? I'm just saying. And Jessica, I'm telling you that needs to be a bit more of a mentality that we get back to, especially as it pertains to the law. Something that I believe MLK would have fought for, what we call a meritocracy. Meritocracy. You are judged by your merits. It is the merits that you bring that will get you to where you go. In some sense, it is, Kamala Harris pushing that soft bigotry of low expectations that it has to be a black person solely because they are black that they need to be appointed. No, dude, I don't. That's what Jessica's saying. If we're all the same race, then why